great to have you on the podcast, Tom.
Thank you.
And for those of you who might have sort of got a bit of an inkling that maybe there's a familial tie here, there is, but I'm really keen to talk to Tom about his experience working as an actor, both on stage and screen, because I think it provides us with some really useful information about the power of leadership and the experience of people when they're working with a good leader or a poor leader. And the thing about the arts is that it's very much these small projects. It's an 8-week shoot, or it's a show that goes, maybe it might go for a couple of years, but most of them don't. So I think that provides us with some really good insights. And so, Tom, you've been involved in performing professionally since you were about 8 years old.
Yeah.
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 Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie.
Oh yeah, I did forget about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've had a wealth of experience both on screen and on stage, working with various directors and producers and the like. And I'm keen for you to know, to share with us, when you've worked with a range of different directors on these things. Obviously, you've seen some very good directors and you've seen some not so good directors. What made the good directors good?
Yeah. It's a great question because, every project you work on, it's a different team for the most part. So you'll not just have a different director, but you'll have different writers and different crew and different components all the way through. So the director, I would say, it's not necessarily their story, but it's their vision. And so I would say the thing that makes a good director is being abundantly clear with what their vision is in terms of the style and the story that they're trying to tell. I think it's often difficult to work with a director if their vision isn't clear or they don't make it clear. If a director sometimes comes into a space and is making things up on the fly, it's pretty obvious sometimes. And there's a difference between a director who's doing that with the goal of letting their performers find things on the spot and not having a clue and just kind of seeing what's going on. I think a good director will come in with a very clear vision and work very closely with the actors to achieve that vision. That, for me, would be the first point. The second point is making sure that everyone, not just the performers, but everyone else within the crew and the whole team, are comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, you're your best self. You put out your best work when you're comfortable. And that's a huge thing about being a director, because it is an intimidating space, especially if you're younger or you're new to the whole thing. It is a pretty daunting space to be because there's so much money and time involved. And if you waste a second, you're wasting money. And it can be quite crazy because, it's a movie set or it's a film set. And that's crazy. We always think about those places in such high ranks. So you want to be able to make not just the performers, but everyone really comfortable. And when you're on set, usually the director is the person with the most power. When you step away, that goes to the producer. I would say the producer usually has the most power, and they're the ones who are really pulling all the strings and making the artwork complete. But on set, the director holds the most power. So you want to make sure that the director is someone you can trust, you feel comfortable and safe with, and that you can give feedback to and receive feedback from. Because I would say, going off on what we were talking about before with it's the director's vision, you want to be able to try something and then know straight away, hey, is this what you were kind of thinking, or am I just off with the fairies? Am I doing something completely not in the same realm that we're trying to achieve here? So I think you need to have a director who can have those frank discussions. And then they can say, love what you're doing, but that's not it. Or that's great, let's keep going. I haven't worked with this director, but I know there's a director who I've heard a story from. It's Mel Gibson, not Mel Gibson, the previous podcast guest we've had, but Mel Gibson, the famous Australian-American actor-director. It's a story when he was directing Hacksaw Ridge with Hugo Weaving, a good friend of ours. Hugo told me the story that actors can get really worked up over direction and notes, and Mel knew this, and so he doesn't really like to use words when he's directing, because he knows that if you say a certain word, like if you say go bigger, or if you say, pull it back a bit, that can really mess with a performer's head, because then it's all down to interpretation, which a lot of things in the arts are. But when it's down to interpretation, sometimes you miss the mark as a performer, as an actor. So Mel knew this, so he doesn't really give notes. And there was a scene where Hugo, I think he wasn't capturing what Mel wanted to. And so he went up to Hugo and he was like, yeah, can you just... And he used this kind of grunting noise, and he squeezed his hands, and he didn't use any language. He just used emotion and sound effects and gestures. And he was saying, I just need a bit more. And Hugo, being amazing as he always is, he took it on and he said, okay, it probably needs to change a bit. I need to be a bit grittier. I need to, he reworked it in his head. But because he created this space and they had their own way of communicating, it's a very special way that they communicate. They both understood what they needed to do. And so that's what the director really needs to do. They need to be able to communicate what they're trying to achieve, but without letting the actor feel like it's up to interpretation, making sure that the actor is comfortable and understands what we're trying to achieve. Because with all film, theatre, everything that you do, you're all trying to achieve the same goal. You want to be in the same style. You want to create similar performances. And if you've got one actor who's, I don't know, doing something completely different to everyone else, it's going to stand out a bit. So it's up to the director to make sure everyone's all on the same page and the aesthetic is there and we're all comfortable. And yeah, it's a hard job being a director. And there are great directors and there are some directors who are still figuring it out. But I would say it's definitely down to the communication as a director. I think that's probably their most important thing. And I think with good communication comes good direction. If you have a director that says, do it again, but better, that won't work too well, because what is better? It doesn't make sense. So specificity creates good outcomes, great outcomes, I think. Specificity as from a director creates brilliant artwork.
Yeah. So the vision is critical, and being able to communicate that vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because I think we don't all hear the same thing. And so you sometimes have to adapt your communication style to whoever you're working with. I mean, and you worked as a child on Last Ride, and no doubt Glendon had to adapt his style to meet your needs versus how he would have spoke to Hugo or somebody else in that moment. Did you, I mean, you were very young, you were only 10 at the time, but did you notice that around you, or were you so...
I never noticed it, and I don't think I ever noticed it in anything I did.
No.
Being spoken to in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a good thing. I think it's good that I didn't notice it, because then I would start to think about, why are they talking to me like this? Why am I being treated differently? I don't think I was ever treated as a child, being a child actor. And I think that that's great. I think that if I was treated like a child, it would be, a bit on the nose, but somewhat belittling, because I'm still there. I'm still performing just as much as everyone else. I'm still having to act just as much as the adult actors. And so it was nice being treated with that level of maturity and respect on sets. Yeah, I would say that, I was given a lot of respect in all of the film positions. Theatre is very different. Theatre, when I was a bit younger and, doing theatre as a child, that is different. I think it's because, there's a lot more aspects going on all around you all at once, and you need to be really careful with kids. And you need to make sure that, they're not going to break anything or get up to mischief. So theatre is a bit different in that respect. We have a lot of child wranglers in theatre. The chaperones, they do amazing work. And I think nowadays it's probably different, I think, which is funny because it was only, 15 or so years ago, or, around that mark. But I think the arts industry has developed a lot in that past 15 years, because things have come out about how to treat children, how to go about them being in your workplace, which is great because it is different. Like now, chaperones nowadays, they operate at such a high level, and they need to make sure that there's no profanity used around the children and no one is getting out of hand, and you can't talk to them or go near them or touch them or anything like that. So chaperones nowadays, they work around the clock and they're amazing at their jobs. When I was younger, I think it was a bit different because we didn't know, we never really saw that side of the arts industry. It wasn't really exposed, but I never had any issues at all. But I think there's been a big shift in how we treat children on sets and on around the stage
And
now. I think we try to protect them a bit more. But back then, we were working crazy hours. I was up at, 4 a.m. most days and thrown into cold water and
I reckon
all
that
of
could
the
still happen
obstacles.
on a film set, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think film's very different to stage
Mm,
because if you want to achieve a certain outcome, there are certain things that
mm,
you're gonna. But you did it, and you were treated with a lot of respect and maturity at the time, and that was really good. I think one of the things that you talked about before that's really interesting, and I remember I feel like we're name dropping, but I will. Antonia Barnard. So she was the producer, one of the producers on Last Ride that you filmed when you were 10, and a very, very good woman and an exceptional producer. And I remember asking her, because the film, you got nominated for an AFI, so did Hugo, and so did the film. And it was a film that not very many people saw, which is very disappointing, but, c'est la vie. But it was obviously a very good film. And I asked Antonia, how do you make a good film? Like, what is it? What are the ingredients? And I remember her saying that it is the team, and it's every element of it. And you can see the quality of the team in every second of that film. And when I think about some of the things you've worked on, I think she's absolutely spot on. Like, it is the quality of the team. What was your experience with teams? I mean, every project has a different team.
Yeah, no, every project does have a different team. And I think because I was introduced to that team aspect of Last Ride, the first one I did, because I was introduced that, when you're making a film, it's not just you. You might have the first credit, but you're not above everyone else. Everyone has their role to play. The same with any workplace. You can't just have one person at the front line and then everyone else bows down to them. So that set me up for success in a certain way. That really made me appreciate everyone's role and everyone's position on set. And it's the same thing with any job. People know more than you in certain aspects, and you know more than them. And it's about how you can collaborate and how you can come together to achieve something great, to create artwork in this sense. So that really set me up for success in terms of my understanding and appreciation for teams and a good team. And Last Ride was a great team. It was a really special group of people. How we filmed it, of course, we were on the road for 6 weeks through the Flinders Ranges, and there was 30 to 40 of us, I want to
30, I
say.
reckon.
And it was one big road trip, as we would, we'd film somewhere, pack up, go back to the local town that we're staying in, stay the night, go to the next town the next day. We're there for a few days. All right, pack it up, go to the next town for a few days. And so, yeah, it's turned into this great 6-week road trip that we just happened to be filming round the clock as well. It was great because we were all new to the Flinders Ranges, and so we were experiencing the same thing at the same time. And you would really bond with these people because you're still having dinner with them every day and lunch and breakfast. And you were around them more than I was with you and my family and everyone. So they become a level of family. And that was a very special experience because nothing else has been like that. Because the next film I did was very different. It was filmed in the CBD of Melbourne, where the crew were all from there. And it was, you clock in, it's 9 to 5 kind of thing. You're doing some nights, some mornings, but, filming for the day, everyone goes home, they see their own family and friends, and that's it. And you don't hang out outside of work hours, and very different approach. And I was a bit disheartened because I had just assumed, how we did it on Last Ride was the way to go. And so it really opened my eyes that every team is different, and to really respect and value what you have if you love it, because the next one might not be the same. So I think that gave me a really harsh awakening to what it is like in the industry sometimes. But that being said, it made me go into every project that I've done since going, okay, I need to learn everyone's name. It's good to remember the names because you just want to put your best foot forward. So, try to learn everyone's name and learn everyone's story and just become friends with them because these are the people who are going to help me out and get me through this project for X amount of time. Yeah, and I find that being in a new space, it has its challenges. I think the first week or so, the first few days of shooting is always the hardest because you come in sometimes halfway through a project where they've already been filming for ages, they've already got a rapport, so you come in and who do I sit with at lunch and who do I talk to and it's this, that, and the other, and it is a bit daunting, and I still find it really intimidating nowadays when I'm rocking up. Like, who do I sit with? Where do I hang out? I'm all by myself. But I think you just need to fall back on, you know, the same thing. I'm the new kid, so I'm going to be the new kid, lean into it. Hi, I'm Tom. Who are you? Nice to meet you. What do you do? Can I sit with you? And just be open to making new friends and having that experience. And I would say it's the same with any workplace, and it's helped me in other workplaces because the faster you can adapt and fit in with your team, the more comfortable you'll be and the better work you'll do. And so it's about moving into a new place, adapting to that, finding your circle, and then just getting the work done. For me, at least.
Yeah.
I can't speak for everyone else, but
No,
for
but
me.
I'm intrigued how, when you do go in as somebody and you're walking onto a set and they've been there for weeks and suddenly you rock up and you're the new kid on the block, how can they better nurture that moment, nurture you in that moment, anybody coming on?
Hmm.
But this is a leadership moment here.
Hmm.
And we often are onboarding new staff into a clique or into a very settled team. And how do we do that? And the lovely thing about the film industry is we're talking about short-term projects. And so it's sort of like organizations, heightened in this heightened fast-paced world. So what would you like? What would help you in that moment?
I think it's not necessarily, it shouldn't be any singular person's role or position to nurture the new people. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's something that everyone needs to take on board in a crew. I think it's a trait that everyone should have, and that this person looks a bit lost or flustered, invite them over to sit with you when you're having lunch, or have a bit of a chat with them on the side, or that kind of thing. I think if everyone in the crew and the cast is a bit more nurturing in that respect, then yeah, it's great. It's really nice. It's really nice to be looked after, and we'll forget about that. But it's really nice to be invited to sit with and to hang out. And those little things, it's amazing. But little things like that go such a long way. I think, especially when you're on a set, and I understand that actors, specifically in film, but they can have a bad rep and they can get a bad reputation. Oh, the actors all want to sit together on the same table, and I think we got to look past that. I think we're all just working on towards the same goal at the end of the day, and we have to be looking after each other in that sense. My last project I did was great in that realm. In that it was a good cop, bad cop, and it was filming up in the Gold Coast. And that crew had been going for like months by the time I had rocked up. I was on the last episode towards the end, so I was kind of coming when they were almost finishing up. But all of the crew the entire time was so lovely, down to the drivers who would pick me up and drop me off. They would be just lovely, and the actors as well, all phenomenal, and would hang out in the crew. And I ate with the director, and I think something about that community, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. That group of people, they have been working together for months on end, a bit disconnected from their friends and family because this is up in the Gold Coast, it's a bit further away from everything. They built their circle around each other, and they built that connection around each other, and so they liked coming to work, and they liked engaging with each other, and in turn me, and that was so warm and welcoming. Because yeah, there was one night where it was a night shoot and we were filming quite late. I think we were having our dinner at 11 at night, and then we were still filming, and everyone was so great, just making sure we were all staying warm, the crew and the cast, and going around with cups of tea and just looking out for one another. And that was a really, really lovely experience. But yeah, I would say it's going back to what the question was. I would say it's no one person's. It shouldn't be one person's position to make others feel comfortable. I think it's something that everyone should take on themselves to go, how can I make this person feel more at ease? If I was them, if I was you, just invite them over. Just sit with them at lunch or at dinner, have a snack with them, offer them a tea. Just those little things. They go a long way.
So and this is what I talk about a lot in leadership. It's about how do you look after people constantly. And I love the idea that it's everybody's responsibility. And the challenge with that is when it's everybody's responsibility, it's nobody's responsibility. And so what I'm hearing is, and I think this possibly happens if you do have a set that's not, that's based somewhere else. And so they've created their own sort of world because they're sort of understanding that they're not going home at the end of the day. They're going to a hotel or whatever, and they've created that community. Whereas when you were doing work that was in CBD Melbourne, they were going home, and their care factor about new people was sort of like, it's sort of this assumption that you're going home too, when in fact you weren't. You were going and spending time with your uncle, but it was a very different experience. But I think it's great to understand and to think about when we're setting up things. How do we look after people? How do we bring people on into our community? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Because that's a leadership role. There has to be a driver of that. That has to be reflected in our culture. And I would anticipate that if you were having dinner with the director has already opened their arms up to allow that to happen, and that becomes the norm. And I think there's a lot in what you just said that's so important. Thinking about whether we're in corporate or in the arts or where we're on the football field, it really doesn't matter. It's how do you make people feel good about themselves? Because you said at the very outset, you're going to get better performances when people feel better about themselves. And that doesn't matter whether that's a film or on a stage. That could be anywhere. If you feel okay and you feel like you're included and you're part of something, you're going to get better outcomes.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I will never forget the day when you did get the direction, which was do it better. And that was another piece that you were working on. And you were distraught because you didn't know what they wanted.
No. And I'm such a people pleaser. And so when someone gives me a note that I don't, I was just in all sorts.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we were saying before. Clarity. Clarity really solves so many problems and issues in every workplace that I've ever been a part of, not just performing, but in everything. Just be clear and precise. Because I think also people get so wrapped up in their heads. People, they take something and then they go down a rabbit hole with maybe they mean this and that. And what do they mean by that? When they said that, maybe they meant this. And I think all it takes is just for some specificity and clarity with what we are saying to really get a message through that we all understand. Because when things are left up to interpretation, that's when we fall apart. That's when we really have no clue where to even start.
And I suppose also if we think about that moment and how that sort of fits into a corporate space, that you were a child at that stage, and the power struggle there is, I just want to please this person, and you weren't at that stage skilled enough to say, can you clarify that? That's not who you were. Now you might ask, what does that mean? But back then, and we see that so often in workplaces where people really, really want to do a good job, they're not getting a clear, advice as to how to achieve that. And they don't feel that it's safe to speak up or to ask a question because they feel that they might lose their job or they might damage their relationship with the boss, or maybe they're meant to know it and they feel like they're stupid, or a whole, host of things that could be going on in somebody's head. And so it's important that we as leaders get clear.
Absolutely.
And I work with lots of leaders who are adamant that they are clear. Like they are absolutely adamant that they're clear. And then I ask them to tell me what they have said, or send me a copy of the email that was so clear. And then you look at it and you go through it with them and you go, and you just start pulling it apart. And it's like,
Mm.
we can think in our heads that we are super clear, but we're not. And the only way to find out is to ask.
Yeah.
And the word better, to do it better, is probably the vaguest instruction of all time
Mm.
because it doesn't have any context. What does that mean?
Mm. Something that I was just going off of what you were saying. I also teach drama to two children, and I find that it's a big circle. It all comes back to where it all started. But with my kids and with I think everyone and adults, we as people love reassurance. We love to know that we've done something right. And I think it doesn't take much energy, and something that I strive to do every time I see it. When there is a good performance, tell them, hey, that was really great. That was really special. Tell them, hey, you're good at what you do. Because we don't hear it enough. We, especially as Australians as well, we really don't relish that, you know, that sense of pride. We're all hung up on our tall puppy syndrome. No, it's all right. No, I'll do better. No, it's okay. No, this is what is expected of me. No, I think we're expected to do the bare minimum, but when we're good, that's great. And it's so lovely to be told what you did was amazing. What you did was good. Keep going. Or you're good at this. You're really
Mm.
good at this. Stick at it. We don't get told that enough. And I think especially children as well, when they're just rocking up and this is like after school drama and it's a bit of fun, but maybe all it takes is for one person to say, you're good at it, keep going, and they do go off and become a celebrity, the next big thing. But it works for adults in the workplace as well. I think in most jobs, like we're told every now and then, hey, you're doing well, this, keep it up. I think more though. I think with everyone in every workplace, and it shouldn't wait until the review that you get a month or the 6-month review or whatever it is. It shouldn't wait. I think it's just something that you can just drop and support each other and give each other a little bit more love in that sense. But I think we're not often told what we're good at. And so we're often guessing what it is. Sometimes we think, I might be great at this. I might not be. Feels right. I'm just going to keep at it. And all it takes is for one person to step in and say, you're great at it or you're good at this. Keep going. We just need that bit of second-hand support sometimes.
We do need it. Everybody wants to know where they stand. Am I doing a good job? And so every time we see somebody doing something well, even if they've been doing it well for 20 years, that is music to our ears. We love that. We know we're on the right track.
Mm.
And I think that as a community, we're really good at doing that when people are young. Toddlers get up and walk and we cheer them and they fall down and we say nothing. Like, we're not going to make a fuss about the falling down. We make a fuss about the getting up. And then we turn into adults and they make a fuss every time we fall down and they don't cheer us when we get up. And I
Absolutely.
think we've got to change that because I don't think it helps anybody. Nobody,
No.
you get more of what you focus on. So why do we focus on the negative so much? And we do.
We do.
We need to wrap this up, but I'm going to get you back on the podcast, Tom, at a later date to talk about yes and.
Yeah.
Because I think that is such an important skill set to have, particularly in our current environment where we live in a world where it's very binary and, you're either with me or you're against me and you're either woke or you're not woke or whatever it might be. Yes and provides us with that opportunity to hear everybody's voice and to not shut the door on people. And I think let's have a conversation about that because I think it's a really important thing to practice. And actors do it so
Absolutely.
well because that's your bread and butter.
That's a bit of improv, baby.
Bit of improv. No, it's a really powerful tool. Tom, your wealth of experience in the space is fantastic. And we love having you as part of our team because you're really good at the social media stuff. And also you just see things in a different way. And it's lovely to have a younger voice in our team to say, have you thought about this? And it's like, no, we haven't. So thank you. But the other thing that you're really good at that we love is that you help us put together things like this and help me sometimes get my words right or to stop feeling nervous when I'm speaking into a microphone. And so all of those things are very much appreciated.
Well, you're good at it. Keep going.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, Thank you. And until probably later today, I'll speak to you soon.